Alright guys, we're just going to talk about a little bit about the preparation of this rig before we start getting into adding the controls. So this rig is made up of joints, that's these guys here, the skeleton, some polygon objects, which is just this whole mesh that's been cut up into little pieces, so you can sort of show those pieces all cut up like this. That's our polygon mesh. And then finally we have our curve control objects, which are here. Now those curve controls are simply made by going create, NURBS, primitives, down to the circle, scale that up. And to create these starry shapes we just grab some of those vertices and then we just bring them in and out. We can create different shapes really easily like that. So let's have a look. Now the main thing that we need to look at here is the hierarchy setup. So if we go down to our outliner, that's in Window Outliner, bring that in. We've got our lights group, which we can ignore. Our geo group, so that's just where all of our little parts are stored. Notice that they're all named correctly with geo and the left and the right sides are clearly marked. And now we have our actual hierarchy of groups. So if we select our group of everything, we can move the whole rig around. If we select some of these parts, only parts of the rig move. So I'm just going to hide the polygons here for a second, which you can do through the show menu, polygons. And you can see that when I grab some of these controls, they're not necessarily all parented together because there's certain things that we want to have sort of happen in this rig when it all gets going. So you can see that we've got our lower pelvis rotates downwards and our pelvis high rotates upwards. So this is a pretty important part, that our center of gravity on our rig is going to be in the center of our hips. And we've got two skeletons and they both start from exactly the same place in space. So I've moved that apart. You can see that it's actually two objects in exactly the same place. One simply points upwards and the other one points downwards. And that's going to be important for us later on. We also have our head control group, which you can see here. And then we have a control under it, and that's actually the curve control. So if we select the control, it's selecting that one. But the head control group is important because that's what we'll be actually aiming at this object. And that's why it's sort of sitting in this group separate from everything else, because we want to set that up by itself. And then we've got everything else is just a pure FK skeleton, so these feet are separate. We've got our curve controls here. Now they're in groups so that we can parent the groups later. So the important thing to remember about rigs is you want everything to be kind of zeroed out on the rotation, especially for joints. And on the curve controls, you want them to be zeroed out both on translation and rotation. So we're going to get into a lot more of that in the next lessons. But for now, that's a pretty good overview of our rig and what we're starting with.